Hi, in this video I'll be describing PT's write essay item type. This item type occurs in the speaking and writing section of the exam, but as you'd expect, it only contributes to your writing score. In this part of the exam, you're given an essay topic and you are asked to provide a response 200 to 300 words, and you have only 20 minutes to write your response. So if you've come from an exam like IELTS where you have 40 minutes, you're going to be a little bit surprised to find that you have to produce an essay of similar length, but with only 20 minutes now. The good news is, though, that the essay in PT is just one of 20 item types. So whereas in IELTS, for example, it represents a really significant part of your score. The other good news is that in this case, in PTE, your writing is assessed by a computer, whereas in IELTS it's assessed by a human, and the human examiner is a lot more strict. So that's some good news. Now, you might get this exam 1 or 2 times in the exam, and it contributes to the following enabling skills: grammar, vocabulary, spelling, and also what we call written discourse. What we mean by written discourse is your ability to form and structure a nice, cohesive argument in your body paragraphs in particular, and to connect your ideas in a logical way. So, an essay question may ask you about the environment, may ask you about the media, may ask you about family, a wide variety of topics. Whatever the topic is, you need to pay careful attention to what the actual instructions are. If it's asking you for your opinion or to discuss problems and solutions, pay careful attention to that, because you don't want to end up writing something that's not relevant. Now, in IELTS, I know I've mentioned IELTS again, but in IELTS, if you want to get a good score, you can't use like an essay template that you've memorized beforehand. But in PTE, you can. You can use linking expressions set out in a nice template, which you might find online, or you might make one yourself, and you can memorize that to make it easier for yourself. Now, I don't recommend that for everyone. If a student writes at a high level, then my preference is that you just write in a natural way that comes to you naturally. But if you're a lower level student, then you can use that template strategy. The computer's looking for linking expressions like furthermore, in addition, on the other hand, in my opinion, in conclusion. And it's looking for them to be in the right place in an essay. So obviously you don't want to say in conclusion in your introduction. The computer would detect that as being in the wrong place. In terms of written discourse and structuring your arguments, think of the PIE structure, P-I-E. That stands for point, illustration with an example, and then explanation. So that's how you should structure your body paragraphs. You make a point, you support it by illustrating with an example, and then you explain that example. So for example, on an essay topic on should people make more of an effort to prevent global warming, for example, you might make the point that yes, people should make more of an effort to prevent the travesties of global warming. For example, they can turn off the lights that aren't needed in their house or when they leave their house. This will ensure that their electricity usage will be reduced and they will leave less of a carbon footprint. In that case, I made a point, I illustrate it with an example, and then I offered an explanation to justify that example. So PIE, P-I-E, remember that one to help you in your 2 body paragraphs. And your essay should ideally be structured in 3 or preferably, I would say, 4 paragraphs. Aim for 4 paragraphs, okay? And in terms of vocabulary, I mentioned earlier linking expressions. The computer is also looking for you to use collocations. Collocations are 2 words that work well together, okay? Now, in the PT database, there are thousands of collocations. So the computer is cross-checking your writing with its own database to see if you're using appropriate collocations. and they are an example of a high level of English. So you want to show the computer that you have that high level of English with your vocabulary. So an example of a collocation, let's see, staying on the topic of global warming, we have environmental damage, human impacts, okay? These kind of words, two words that work well together, these are collocations. So remember, structure, arguments with examples, 4 paragraphs, 200 to 300 words. Check your spelling. Leave 2 or 3 minutes to check your spelling at the end. Otherwise, your score will be reduced in not only spelling, but also grammar and vocabulary, because if you spell a word incorrectly, then it can also impact your grammar and vocabulary score. So follow these tips and make sure you work hard at this section of the exam. See you soon.